do the lines, because I'd learnt the lines up until doing it. I was like, that's not natural.
Yeah, but that's because you know it. Like,
because I know it. Yeah, because I was just waiting for it.
It's much harder.
Oh, it's terrible.
Because you know what the line is, whereas I guess wrestling it's more. Yeah, but the thing is about not watching it with sound. Like, what I would say to people if they're really struggling is watch your match without sound to kind of like, and then watch it with sound. Because when you watch it without sound, you've kind of like, you've gotten over it now. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've watched it, and then you need to watch it with sound because you need to know what the crowd liked and didn't like. So yeah, just that's what I started doing. I would watch it without sound and get over it and be like, okay, cool, I'm watching myself now. And then watch it with sound, because sometimes you think, oh my god, the crowd loved that, and like you didn't expect that they would keep that, and then maybe get rid of this because no one cared. Or it's so important to watch yourself. But I mean, I do YouTube, so I just listen to my voice all the time, and I'm just like, oh my god,
you get used to it.
Oh god, I listen to it though, and I'm like, oh gosh. And I noticed as well, whenever I film YouTube, I always say so like most of my editing is just me cutting out me saying I finish every sentence and go
that is my thing as well. I say that all the time, and so many of my listeners send me like messages and emails. Some guys probably cutting them up, and I do all the time. Or I do a lot.
Yeah, but I think it comes from like if you're talking on your own, you almost want to fill the silence, because you know you're speaking and you're on and your energy's up, and then you're like and then there and then I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, shut up, what are you doing? Like, I'm trying to cut myself out. I'm like, why do you keep saying like, you're ruining it.
I remember like my first ever podcast I ever did, I was doing it so badly. I had Diana Hart on, and I was just like, I wasn't really paying attention. It was like such a big deal to have Diana Hart on. I was really happy. It was my first show. And when I played it back, all I could think about was me going, I was just thinking, oh my goodness, is she watching me thinking, what are you doing? But yeah, you get used to it after a while. I mean, it does become one of those things. The more like repetitions of anything you do, you start to it becomes like a little bit more natural. And I think that's the same with anything. But when you first do this stuff, it does get a little bit, it can be overwhelming. Like when you're, especially when you get feedback instantly from people. That's one of the things with this stuff is somebody out there somewhere is going to tell you. So don't worry about that. You know, they're always going to remind you of what you haven't or have done or what you've said. So you get used to that after a while, and you sort of grow a thicker skin to it, which is cool. But it could also have the sort of negative approach of just steering you away from this side of stuff, because it's difficult.
The thing is, though, like I always say, because you know, whenever I do like interviews or you know, people just send me questions and things like that, they always ask about the negativity thing, and it's hard because like with social media, it's really hard to distinguish like what's constructive criticism and what's just people being horrible, because obviously social media is like just a disaster for that kind of stuff. And like I always say, though, I think you know you can figure out who's like giving you constructive criticism and who's just being horrible, but you have to be open to criticism. Like I sometimes get comments on my YouTubes of like ways to film it to make it better, or like maybe invest in like a microphone or this equipment and things like that. And it's like, but like you kind of have to listen, because it's like these are the people watching your product that you're putting out there, and like, you know, it's actually super helpful what they're saying. So you know, whatever you're doing, whether it be YouTube or a podcast or especially wrestling, like you have to just listen. You have to have the humility and be open to that criticism, because even if it might seem strange to you, it could be so helpful. Like the first thing I do when I have my match is always just ask people, like, is there anything, you know, you saw, or is there any like feedback or anything like that? Because they might just say one thing that could just change the whole, like, I mean, so much of my stuff has improved so much just from what people have said. Do this, or just change this, and it's just a small thing. And it's like, you know, I had a match against this girl, and I got a bit of feedback on how it should have been structured to make it more sense. So like, you know, because she was like this, you know, huge like powerhouse, and they're like, work the match like that, you know, it makes more sense like this. And then we had a match again, and the crowd loved it, and it just flowed so well. It told such a good story just from listening to that one bit of just do this, and it, you know, so you have to be open to criticism, even if, you know, you've got to be open to it.
Yeah, and do you know what? There's like so many different types of forms of content as well. There's a big difference between doing like a live video to something that you're going to edit and put out, and just the style. I mean, I would probably say I don't really watch I probably only watch like follow 3 or 4 people in wrestling. You're one of them. But you seem really natural when you talk. Like you've got it down to a T. I think people can relate to it better because you're not over the top, shall we say? You know, you're kind of keeping it down.
Yeah.
But then I look at somebody like Simon Miller, who he knocks it out of the park quite a lot as well, because he's just like he's just got this energy out of nowhere. I don't know how he does it. I couldn't do it for that long, talking about those particular themes. There's just no way. I have to be passionate about it. And people on this podcast know as well that I have a personal dislike on Simon Miller. He knows that. But in any case, Simon Miller, he does, with his videos at least, he does knock it out of the park with what he does. And some people are just really naturally gifted like that, and they just have a talent. And some people do find it hard. But I think my only advice to people, because I've had lots of people say, I want to start something. I just say, try and just be yourself a little bit. Just ramp it up a little bit, but not too much. Don't try and be somebody else. Just be you, because you is always unique, and you never know. Somebody out there might enjoy it more. So it's difficult, but you know, the social media side is something. It's a useful tool.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It can be the best thing in the world and the worst thing in the world. But I always say to people, like, if you wanted to try, like, because my cousin, she's much younger than me, but she's really into makeup, and she's very good at it. And she's like, I want to do YouTube, but I'm worried about what people think. And she's kind of finishing school at the moment, like she's still in school, and I completely get it, because like when you're in school, like you're never as self-conscious in your life as when you're in school, because you're surrounded by your peers. And I just said, like, what a shame it would be in like 5 years, you're doing your admin job, whatever you're doing, you just think, oh, I could have done something in makeup, could have done something that I'm passionate about, but I didn't do it because I was worried about what some girl thought who you won't even know in a year's time. This is why I always say to people, like, when they want to try something, I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm sure people make fun of me, they make fun of my videos, whatever. I don't care. Like, I'm passionate about it. I want to do it. Some people like it. Like, I've got some subscribers. I've got some people who tune into it. I'm going to keep doing it. And like, what, even if you've only got like, because 100 isn't a lot, like in terms of YouTube, even if you've only got 100 people watching it, you've got 100 people watching it. Like, do what you want to do, and you can't let other people's opinions stop you from doing something. And to what you say about Simon, like, that's his character, like he's got it down to a T, and that's him. And you shouldn't try to be the next version of him, because that's him, that's his niche, that's his market, and he kills it at that. You just have to be you and have to put that across. And you've got to make it a bit larger than life. You're on camera, so you talking like normal doesn't translate. You've got to make it a bit normal, but just be authentic. Like, I watch a lot of YouTube because I like when people create content. That's more interesting to me than sometimes what I see on the telly. Like, I like to see real things, and I watch some people and I just think, it's just not for me. It's very forced, it's very fake, and you've got to do what you're actually passionate about. You've got to talk about what you actually like, and you can't just force things that aren't real, and it becomes very see-through. So I just say to people, if you want to do it, definitely go for it. Just be you and amp that up. And like you say, you just got to be yourself, but make it a little bit more, because if you're not being yourself, it becomes very obvious, So
it's interesting. My friend, actually, he's not a YouTuber at all, but he decided to put something up about, I don't know what he was doing that, but he was fixing something, like maybe a controller or something on his Switch. And man, that was it. He knocked it out of the park. Next thing, like Nintendo themselves have actually asked him to start reviewing their products, just because that's the way they go with it. But it's funny now, because big companies are more interested in like people that can influence other people on what to buy than they are like a commercial. They're more likely to now, because if you're somebody sitting at home and like I'm like it all the time. If I go out into a shop and I think about purchasing something I'm not too sure about, I'm probably going to load up YouTube and see if someone's done a review. And I'm more likely to take that person's word for it, just because, like,
they're a normal person.
Yeah, they're a normal person, and they might give you some negatives and the positives thrown together. But I'm more drawn to that than I would be a commercial or an advert from the actual company themselves, because obviously there's a biasness in there, and they want to sell you the product.
And it's so crazy how it happens, though, because like you say, like that he wasn't a YouTuber. This was something that he knew how to do, and all right, screw it. Like I'll just do a video. But it's always the way. Like I've seen so many like where they just do something that's like authentic to them, and that is how YouTube goes. That blows up, and then your channel just goes crazy. And like I mean, that's not happened to me. So, but like my friend, she's a big wrestling fan, and she went to the Rumble and she filmed her reaction to it. It got like 200,000 views. You know, she's now making money off it. So she does live streams on Monday when Raw's on. She does like recaps. You know, she makes these consistent videos, and like she's almost made like a small business out of like a passion project, because she works. She does a really good job. She works full time, and this is just something she does in her free time for fun. And it's like surreal now that like, you know, that's almost a business for her. Like, and it's just something that she's like passionate about. And this is why I say to people, like, you've got to go for it. Like, I know there's so much content out there, and people might argue it's oversaturated, but I could sit and watch YouTube all day over the telly, because I like real people, and I like you say, like, you trust that. Like, if you're umming and ahhing like me with video games, right? I really, if I don't like it, I just will never ever pick it up again. So I want to make sure if I'm spending that money that like I'm going to get my use out of it. I just watch people's reviews. Like, I'll watch people talk about the video game without too many spoilers, talk about like if it's worth it or not and what the kind of game is like, and then I'll go and buy it, because I don't trust like a trader. I don't trust like,
you can't.
You know, I don't even trust the reviews that people like type, because they could be computer generated. I trust like multiple people, and like you say, they do give negatives, and they'll say like, this isn't good, this graphic's not great, like the feet, you know, and then you can kind of think, is that something that's like crucial to me or not? And then you can make your decision. So yes, it's crazy how so much of it now is just like real people kind of making that content.
And while we're talking about that, like you're into video games yourself, should say that we have a nice crossover here on this podcast for things like video games with our listeners. What sort of genre of games are you into? Is it a lot, or are you just very specific with certain things? I saw you had Animal Crossing last. That was the last one I saw.
I'm so specific. Like, I'm one of those people, like, the only game that I remotely play that's like out of my like thing is like Uncharted. Like, other than that, I'm very much into like Animal Crossing, Sims. Like, I like those kind of games that are like based
controlling
on, like,
people.
I like making my own world and like controlling everyone. I like those games where like you can build your own world and build your own house or town, and like just living through other people basically.
I recommended you this game on Messenger, 2 Point Hospital. I think you'd enjoy it. 2 Point Hospital, it's called.
I love those kind of like lifestyle, like, I don't know, like, what are they called, those games? I don't know what the actual genre is, like simulation, I guess.
Yeah, simulators. I mean, the thing is, and everybody, all my listeners will be laughing because they know where I'm going with this. But the thing is, with those Sims games, I like those ones that you're talking about because they're fun. But then there's these other versions, like a farmer or train driver or bus driver. And those are the ones that sort of like I think it's like a guilty pleasure of mine, because I load these videos up and I'll watch people playing the bus simulator, and it's like, I don't know if you've seen them. Have you ever checked some of them out?
I've seen them, but I just think
they're unbelievable. Like, they'll give the change. It's like literally real time. Everything's in real time,
but I like that. But Animal Crossing is real time. But I can't help it. I time travel all the time.
There's a big difference between Animal Crossing and train driver, bus driver. Yeah. But it was really funny because this last video I watched, this guy, bless him, he was so happy. Like, he's got, I mean, I can't knock him because he's got an unbelievable subscribers list. So people is watching this stuff. But he got the Switch version of I think it was the train one. And all of a sudden he was so happy because he could sit on a train. And he was like happy because he was beating the train that he was sitting on at every station.
Oh my
whilst
God.
he was playing it. So it's unbelievable.
I don't know. I mean, I like Sims and stuff, and I like Mario games. Like, you know, all those. Like, I literally play all the Mario's, like Mario Party, Mario Kart, Mario Bros. Like, I like all that.
Mario Maker too. That's a good one.
Or like, you know,
right
ones
there.
that you can play with people. Like,
Yeah.
my family, for some reason, like at Christmas, are always like, yeah, let's play a game. And I'm like, what? Like, you don't even play. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even like know what to do. But that's always something that comes out of Christmas. And when I was younger, I actually used to play like proper games. Like, you remember when the Xbox Connect came out and it was crazy because like, no, you know, that had never been a thing before, where you would like stand up and actually move, and then you